Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. So inshallah this is my sort of advice on doing hifz and stuff. Alhamdulillah, I got the opportunity to learn Arabic maybe a few years ago, maybe 2 3 years now. And after learning Arabic, one person he starts to learn the deeper stuff of Arabic. He starts to learn the nahu, which is grammar, and the sarf, which is morphology, and balagha, which is eloquence. And then he starts to apply to the Quran. Then he realizes that how beautiful the Quran is, and that in order for a person to memorize all these sort of rules and to keep them with him, he has to memorize certain stuff. So the ulama mention that the first person any Muslim should memorize before any poetry or anything else is always the Quran, because this is Kitab Allah. So long story short, I was talking to a sheikh from Syria, and he mentioned to me like how much hifz have you done of Quran, and I said to him like very very little. He goes to me, goes that I advise you that if there's two books in your life that you were to memorize, you should memorize the Quran. Then after that you should memorize Riyadh al-Salihin, for the hadith of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So my journey of learning hifz has been like maybe a year now. Alhamdulillah, I started with the advice of the Sheikh, and he said to me to start from the back. He gave me certain paras to do, so I did from 26, 27, 28, 29, 30. Then he said to memorize some of the surahs because they have very important ahkam in for those who want to study the ulum shari'iyya, like the Islamic sciences. Then he said to me, you can start from Baqarah and then carry on. So alhamdulillah, following his advice at the age of 26 now, working full time as a teacher. But my advice is that you have to make time in your day. Wallahi, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given all of us time. And we all have the ability to do certain things, but it's what we dedicate our life to. The hadith of Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, it will say Yawm al-Qiyamah, isn't it? That irqa wartaqa, that a person will be commanded to read, and then he will ascend into his place. Wherever he stops reading is where he'll have his abode or his rank in Jannah. And say that for the Huffaz, that when they stop reading or when they finish the Quran, they will be in the highest level of Jannah. But more importantly, it's about learning the Quran, memorizing the Quran, and applying the Quran to our life, making what is halal in our life and what is haram in our life. And to understand that this book that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala revealed from the sky is not just a book that our forefathers read and that we read or we listen to in Taraweeh because somebody has a good voice and that's why we know. No, Wallahi, this book is a book, complete book of guidance. There's no doubt in this book. La rayba fi, there's no doubt in this book. This book was the master. This book was the source for civilizations being built, for Muslims leading the world. Wallahi, if the Muslims return back to the Quran and to the Sunnah, then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will give them the honor, their glory, and their maqam and their status in the world once again. So my advice is for every youngster, for any person, doesn't matter regardless of age, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala requires something from us, and so the only regret that I feel that Muslim will have in his life is that if he didn't learn Arabic and he didn't understand the Quran, our life was here to lead a life of being obedient to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and understanding the book that Allah SWT revealed to us upon the Prophet ﷺ. And this was the same book that Sahaba took, they understood, and this was the reason they became leaders of the world and they became role models for all of us. So my advice is that either make hifz of the Quran first, dedicate maybe 3 4 years, and then afterwards learn Arabic, or you can do the other way around. But I don't advise learning Arabic and learn the Quran because you'll end up doing none because it'll be too difficult. Me, I was fortunate that I learned Arabic first. I still continue to learn Arabic, but I don't need to. It's become like English now for me, so it's not really something I need to concentrate a lot on. But now I'm focusing upon the Quran. So either you learn the Quran first or you learn Arabic first. But even for the Huffaz, that I advise you to learn Arabic. I advise you to understand what you're reading, and this will have a profound effect in your salah. You realize that you won't find it boring anymore. That you'll open the Kitab of Allah, the Book of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and you'll find enjoyment inside. And once you start to learn the deeper stuff, you will get to understand just how amazing this book is and the promises that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given to this ummah and what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has reserved for us in Akhirat. You'll understand inshallah. So this is my advice. Just the one is a great sheikh of Syria. His name is Sheikh Abdul Razak Al Halbi alayhi rahmatullah, passed away now a few years ago in Turkey. And they say that he started studying when he was the age of 40 years old, and he became one of the biggest shuyukh in the past 100 years. So many shuyukh, they started studying, learning the Quran and the ulum, the sciences of deen in their old age. They want all young. So we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to give us tawfiq to memorize, to learn, to understand, to implement. Currently, this is just my advice. I'm listening to the ahadith of Imam Nawawi, the Arabiyin and Nawawiyya, the 40 ahadith of Rasulullah SAW. And even in Imam Nawawi, like the time that he came was a time of the Tatars, and there was great fitna in the Ummah. They say that the Ummah has never seen a disaster just like the Tatars, what they did to Baghdad and how they destroyed the civilization, and how they killed the Muslims. But they said that Imam Nawawi at that time, he was the age of 25 when Tatars entered Baghdad, and instead of him going for jihad fi sabilillah, there was no point because he was going to die anyway. He would have got killed on the way. He devoted all his energy into serving this ummah, into learning the ulum, into learning the Quran, and into writing, and he dedicated all the strength of his mind. And Imam Nawawi's kitabs now will live until the rest of history. And I believe that the youngsters, especially in this day and age, we're living through certain fitnas as well. Maybe not physical fitnas in terms of harb or in terms of war, but other mental fitness that the ummah is facing. But if a youngster, he wants to do anything, then I think he should devote himself into the paths of knowledge, uh, learning the Quran, dedicating himself to learning the Quran and all the sciences go with it, and to serve the ummah, inshallah. Jazakallah khair. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.